We're here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generations.
Making news just for you. It's January 22nd here in Seoul. I'm Sinyoon, and you're watching News Generation. Joining me in the studio is Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
Happy Monday.
Happy
and
Monday.
Today we have a very special guest. It's Lee-jun. Welcome, Lee-jun.
Happy to be here. Quick introductions. I'm former national player in kabaddi and also 2019 Miss Korea, first runner-up Kijuno. And I currently go for the lectures as a military professor because due to my previous working experiences as a military officer, and happy to be here and my pleasures.
I'm so happy to have you in the studio. And now both will be speaking on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. As usual, let's start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. Now, Ukraine is nearing the 2-year mark in the war against Russia, which broke out in February 2022. According to Time magazine, the average soldier fighting for Kyiv is 43 years old. This average is up by nearly 10 years from March of 2022, a month after the war began. At the time, the average age of a Ukrainian soldier was between 30 and 35 years old. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has reiterated how his men are growing old and how they haven't been healthy to begin with. Ukraine's military conscription starts from the age 27. Parliament has been trying to pass a law lowering the age of those who can be mobilized to 25 since Ukraine has been grappling with a personnel crisis due to the war dragging on. And heavy snowfall has changed the itinerary for the 4th Winter Youth Games, which kicked off in Gangwon-do Province on Friday here in South Korea. The Korea Meteorological Administration issued a heavy snow warning, which prompted competitions like the ski jumping event to be delayed by hours. Some performances and skating sessions were completely canceled. Most parts of the region saw dozens of centimeters of snow pile up, closing off roads and leading to severe traffic congestion. The Winter Youth Olympics is the first of its kind to be held in Asia. It's expected to run until February 1st. And moving on to our last story. Back in 1999, France adopted the Pacte Civil de Solidarité, a framework that legally recognizes two adults who wish to live together or formalize their relationship without getting married. Couples recognized under Pactes are eligible for many benefits like married couples have, including tax benefits, healthcare, and even child support. Recently, the number of Pactes couples reached an all-time high. A statistics compilation agency in France found that the number of couples who signed up for Pactes in 2022 alone reached 209,827. Now, back in 2020, the number of Pactes couples has surpassed that of married couples. Observing such trend, French economists estimated by the year 2030, most French people would no longer follow the traditional concept of marriage. Instead, one economist thought 90% of the population would either choose cohabitation or Pactes. And Pactes was originally launched to thwart high divorce rates and protect the rights of same-sex couples. France only recognized same-sex marriage in the year of 2013, which was around 14 years after Pactes was implemented. And studies show that Pactes couples had a low separation rate compared to married couples. While divorce rates in France hover at around 30%, only 1 out of 10 Pactes couples separated. And France's low birth rate problem has also been solved through Pactes. 60% of France's newborns were born from Pactes couples. And South Korea is also experiencing an aging population and low birth rate, which is why a survey recently showed how 6 out of 10 Koreans believed France's Pacte system could help South Korea with its own demographic crisis. Now, here in the studio, I was very fascinated to read this news story because this is a relatively new concept, cohabitation, but being legally recognized as like a married couple and reaping similar benefits is quite a new concept here in South Korea. What are your thoughts about the Pacte system, and do you think it could be effective for South Korea?
Well, personally, I mean, like, why not? I perfectly agree with the Donga system because marriage is not just like living with the person who truly live. It's like starting new life journeys together. So I think it might need more previous step or process to get to know each other more deeply with the times and figure out truly who they are with the daily lives as well. So I'm pleased to have this Pacte system as I wish and believes its positive effects to our low birth rate problems as well and as one of the options to take.
Exactly. Given the fact that South Korea does have the lowest fertility rate in the world, maybe this system could actually boost birth rates as we're seeing in France. But Walter, what are your thoughts on a lot of Koreans, 6 out of 10 answering that this system would be helpful, given the fact that we are a relatively conservative nation?
Yeah, I'm 100% for this Pacte system. I think think living with another person is one of the hardest things in a relationship, especially when you're married. And even as partners, it's a great way to test out the waters before you dive in, or to try before you buy scheme. So I didn't live with my wife before we got married, and we did have some troubles at the start. But using this system and making it feel like you are a married couple may actually help with, you know, when you split up, it might not be as, how can I say, messy as a divorce. So therefore, I think this is a great idea, and we should definitely have this in Korea.
And I think it really reflects our generation, particularly Millennials and Gen Z's concept of what it means to be a couple. We're no longer tied down to the traditional concept of marriage. Instead, we could just be cohabiting. Now let's switch gears to our main discussion topic of the day. We've mentioned a few times about how our generation is all about healthy pleasure. What's that? My AI voice secretary will tell you.
Healthy pleasure, a combination of the words health and pleasure. It's a buzzword commonly used among people in their 20s and 30s in Korea, reflecting how young adults pursue happiness while trying to live a healthy and fit life. Before, going on a diet and staying healthy was like a quest or a challenge. But now, young millennials and Gen Z are trying to find pleasure while improving their health, mainly by finding a perfect sport they can do as a hobby.
With more millennials and Gen Z pursuing healthy pleasure, we've seen a lot of people use the hashtag 오후난. It's an acronym in Korean that roughly translates to done with workout. And working out and finding a sport you could do as a daily hobby has become trending among our generation. So here in the studio, I would like to ask, do you have your personal favorite sport, and do you do sports as a hobby?
Yeah, so I actually used to work out a lot. I have to admit, these days I'm a little lazy over the past couple of months. But I'll be getting back into it soon because it is something great, not just for our physical health, but for our mental health. I also started getting more into just thinking about my health in general and not aesthetically looking good. Saying that, I don't want to have a dad bod. But my favorite sport is football or soccer, and I do get to play that once a week. So yes, I am still trying to stay healthy at the same time.
Oh, okay. What about you, Heejun? Do you like sports?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Me as an athlete, I love workout and learning new sports. That's why I have much experience in my past doing stunt cheerleading and track and field as hurdle in my youth. And I started my sports kabaddi since 2014, and I kept it as my professional ability since last year, October, Hangzhou Asian Games. Quick info, the kabaddi is known as a very national sports in India, like same as taekwondo in Korea. So it's one of like martial arts, and it's also known as a team sport. Like we need maximum 7 people or 5 or 4 as depends on the games. And all you need is just other players and mats. You don't need any balls or equipments at all. And all you have to do is like touching opponent's team's member with using your hands or fists. And as many numbers of the touch the people, you get the touch points.
I see.
Yes. And I currently also, I love the ball sports as well. I love American football and full set. And recently I just professionally learned how to do the full set at the academy as well.
That's really nice. So you used to be a national kabaddi player, and
Right.
now you're doing futsal. But Heejun, these two sports categories, we could say, were traditionally considered quite masculine,
Right.
or something that wouldn't be fit for a woman. Now, did you ever feel this way? Did you ever feel like the sports that you've decided to do or are enjoying are confined to a specific gender?
Like I would have to say yes, especially the football and futsal. I used to be like confined as masculine sports, as you mentioned. So females are learning the sports like if they want to try or just give themselves a try on the games. Many people seems to say, why you're doing this sports? Just don't do it. You might get hurt, get your injuries as well. I know that it might be just truly worrying about me, but I cannot stop thinking that it's just like one of a typical bias in stereotypes or prejudice at limited on facing the imperfect women, I guess. And in my sports kabaddi, I also have much experiences regarding the genderless issues, because since I think the amounts of numbers of women's kabaddi team is same as the men's kabaddi team.
Wow.
But the problem is the numbers of competitions or championships conducted more limited to the men, not like women's. I guess it's because the men's games are more intense to watch and extremely to watch. But I think it's also one of typical bias, I think.
Exactly.
But these days, things get better. So India, they consider to conducting more league for the women's as well. So it's very happy to hear.
Yeah.
And as an athlete, I want to like be more confident to facing with these issues as athletes. And also, I just want to like shout out my advocacy, which is there's no such categories as under the sports, you know.
We are seeing sports become more gender neutral.
Right.
And I guess nowadays, stereotypical gender attributes have been blurred, not only in just sports, but in many industries. But specifically in regards to sports, we're seeing a lot more men do stereotypically feminine sports like ballet or Pilates. Women are also trying out Jiujitsu or boxing. Do you agree to seeing such trend among our generation?
Yeah, because I've been part of that trend. I have done Pilates before, and I underestimated how difficult it was. There was even one class where I thought I was going to pass out and throw up. I never realized how Pilates was so difficult. And it doesn't emasculate me in any way or form. And I also agree with the women when it comes to MMA. That women these days are breaking boundaries, and men are also breaking boundaries and going into women's sports.
Exactly. Now, Heejun, as a national athlete who's done kabaddi, would you say that women are now breaking barriers when it comes to relatively masculine sports?
Right. It's very nice and proud to see how the difference now. And as you mentioned, there's no such a feminine or masculine sports anymore. It's just like under the people's different physical ability and the preference, I guess. And even in the field, like a full solo in ballet, it's more exciting to see the females and males, they play together at the different positions and make a great combination as performances. And also, I think as the audience, they have more options to see and watch the players for their favorite sports. And also for the player in my sports kabaddi, they are more increasing the huge fan for the female athletes, which is very nice to see and has more developments in our kabaddi fields as well.
I see, but since when do you think we've started seeing sports become more gender neutral?
To be honest, I don't know when exactly it turns out, but I believe it turns out to our generations, the peoples like MZ have a more open personality and perspective. It also affects to our sports society as well, I think, because they are not only the sports, all the jobs and duties our society at some points. I think the gender barriers to the professions are the biggest crumble as well. And we can see the female builders in the construction sites and the male hairdresser at the hair salon. I think these changes gave us more courage and challenges to people, and especially in the sports, to many people to try to support whatever they want under their needs.
I think the societal atmosphere has definitely changed, which affected even sports. Now, we asked our viewers if they've tried a sport that was conventionally thought to be more apt for the opposite gender. Here's what 3 of them had to share with us. Take a look at the screen to find out. Let's start with MIMS. MIMS said, I'm an American woman and I've always enjoyed dancing, especially tap and jazz. Recreationally, I also like basketball, badminton, and kayaking. The Power Ranger 200 said, I'm a male who really enjoys curling, especially Team Kim as well as basketball, ice hockey, volleyball, and golf. Leon Teo said, I'm a male and personally I don't like participating in physical sports activities. I do enjoy watching some sports though, like swimming, short track speed skating, and figure skating. Now, I do think that along with the social atmosphere of us becoming more open to the concept of what gender roles have, I do think now sports is really catching up to that trend. But in specific, I would like to focus on how our generation is leading such genderless or gender neutral trend in sports. Now, why do you think our generation in particular is doing so?
Well, I think it definitely comes down to also the social media and also media helping change trends. I mean, I think I see a lot more advertisements of men's Pilates, men's yoga, etc. And this is that's broken down barriers of like, hey, I can do it as well. And I've posted online before when I did Pilates. It was really difficult, like I said. I have nightmares about it. But yeah, so there's also just influence from TV shows. We have a lot of variety shows in Korea. One would be like Shooting Star, which is a women's futsal kind of team. And that has actually spurred a lot of young women to go and play futsal themselves.
Exactly. Now, what about you, Heejun? Why do you think our generation is open to this?
I think referring my answer about the MZ, compared to the past, I personally think that we're living in the more varied environments to try the various sports. clothes whenever we want and wherever we live in Korea. And also additionally, people more focus on the diversity, not only the one professions, I guess. So MZ, our generation, could naturally enjoy them. And also whenever they're born, they don't get much stereotypes to choose what sports they want. And also I definitely agree with the Walters about the TV show influence on this gender issue, like Shooting Star, Gordon is a perfect example for it.
And I also think it has to do with our generation being so apt to being fit. We're all about that healthy pleasure. So you have to do what makes your, your fancy tickle, I guess. Was that an expression you made? All right, now to find out more about how our generation is leading a gender-neutral trend, we're going to include a gender expert in our discussion. Stay tuned for a live interview. Let's include an assistant professor from KDI School of Public Policy and Management in our talks. It's Kim Jo-eun, an assistant professor specializing in social demography and gender and work. Welcome, Professor Kim.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right, Professor, I'd like to ask you the first question. Would you say our generation is breaking down gender stereotypes, and is our generation leading a so-called genderless or gender-neutral trend?
I would say yes and no. The younger generation is definitely more egalitarian in terms of their gender attitudes and behaviors. And there's a numerous statistics across the globe that has shown that in affluent society, the majority of younger generation is now supportive of egalitarian gender attitudes. This includes the belief that both men and women should equally share responsibilities in paid work, housework, and political participation. And moreover, many young people now view gender as a spectrum rather than a binary concept, understanding that gender identity can be fluid and more complex than before. So this perspective encompasses not only transgender individuals who identify with a gender different from their sex assigned at birth, but also those who identify as non-binary, gender fluid, and among other self-identified gender identities. So Generation Z, of course, has in particular developed a more nuanced language of gender that is often not fully grasped by older generation, including Millennials and Generation X, marking a significant shift from traditional gender notions. However, our society remains significantly still gendered, despite these progressive gender attitudes among younger cohorts. So, for instance, while egalitarian views are more accepted and common, women still tend to perform a greater share of domestic labor, and no country has fully achieved egalitarian division of labor, paid labor and unpaid labor between genders. And also the gender gap in domestic labor is narrowing, and progress has been uneven and stalled in some countries, particularly in countries like South Korea. And while this also the acceptance of gender fluidity is increasing, the majority of people still identify themselves as either female or male. So this suggests that there is a great hesitancy among many, including younger cohorts, to fully embrace these new practices in gender norms. So therefore, I would say it's premature to assert that younger generation is now leading a genderless trend.
And why do you think we're seeing this type of trend apart from sports? Where else are we seeing things be more open to both genders?
So in terms of factors, I would say the gender neutrality can be attributed to mainly two factors. One is changing labor market conditions and cultural shift. And first, the labor market has undergone significant changes since 1970s. And unlike the past where stable lifelong employment was the norm and supported the male breadwinning model, today's labor market is precarious and less stable. So this instability, of course, undermines the notion that men should be the solely breadwinners, leading to a necessity for women to actively participate in the labor force. So, of course, this has led to a greater acceptance of more flexible and egalitarian gender relations. And second is a cultural shift. Cultural dynamics are the key in especially more affluent societies. And modern values increasingly now emphasis on postmodern, post-materialistic concepts such as self-actualization and self-fulfillment. This is very different from previous generation who like to place greater emphasis on family formation and adherence to the conventional norms. And this shift in cultural values creates an environment where individual self-expression is more valued more highly than conforming to traditional standards. So, of course, this cultural shift empowers now many young people to express their gender identities more freely and pursue their interests and ambitions without being constrained by traditional gender norms. And of course, in addition to sport, these economic and cultural changes are reflected in various dimensions of life, including fashion and dating styles and professional domains.
I see.
Thank you, Professor. And I'd like to give you like today's last questions. And how is diagnose these trends? And are we going to right directions, or what are some pros and cons?
So the trend toward gender neutrality presents both opportunities and challenges, of course. Personally, I'm somewhat skeptical about whether this genderless trend will become the mainstream. I strongly still believe that in respecting everyone's gender and gender identity is crucial. The growing social acceptance in this sense of gender fluidity is a positive step in lifting many prejudices and biases faced by non-binary and gender atypical individuals, like the sportswoman who is participating. You mentioned the traditionally masculine domain. So by moving away from rigid gender roles, we open up possibilities for individuals to express themselves more freely and authentically, which can lead to a greater, personal fulfillment and social harmony. However, I do have concerns regarding potential political conflicts. So many conventional religious groups and political groups may not support these changing gender relations, leading to backlash against the trend toward gender neutrality. So this opposition could create stark political divisions and conflict, potentially hindering progress towards inclusivity and acceptance.
Exactly,
so I would say
Professor Kim,
navigating.
Due to time, we'll have to listen up to here. But as you mentioned, there still needs a lot more work other than just seeing gender neutrality in sports. In order to see it in other dimensions of society, we do need to delve into deeper issues. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure hearing your insights today.
Thank you.
But we are going in the right direction. Gender fluidity is the first step. So how do you guys hope to see society evolve when it comes to setting and dealing with gender stereotypes and roles?
I think we just have to get over traditional masculinity, and men should be also free to do whatever sport they want to do, and they shouldn't feel emasculated for doing that. So yes, I think, especially talking as a man, let's not, confine ourselves to just manly sports.
All right, what about you, Heejun?
I think respect to diversity is the most important matter, I think. And not only for the women, we need to understand the differences, but when it comes to sports, remember there's no such boundaries to do it. And as personally, I want to push myself to taking this lead, this metaphor as formal national player. I love to see the changes in the futures.
And hopefully we'll see such changes soon, as we are going the right direction. In the meantime, we'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
And Woo Heejun.
I love it to be here.
It was a pleasure having you on our show, Heejun.
Thank you.
All right. And thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are News Generations.